Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Living with Real Intention roundtable discussion. I wanted to welcome you. We're on the She Rises Studio platforms today, which is really exciting. And I wanted to let you know that the mission from She Rises Studios is absolutely to inspire, empower, and educate all women who are facing the most impossible situations. And for those that are right in the midst of a transition that's going to bring them, some amazing opportunities. And really, what we want to do is help them understand how they can navigate through their own personal journeys. And a lot of that is around our own stories that we come to share through, which are about hope, perseverance, strength, education, and an unstoppable fearlessness. And I think each and every woman who's on the panel today absolutely has a story that in some way connects with that mission. So I wanted to introduce myself. I'm Melanie Greenhalgh, and I am actually a part of the She Rises Studio collective leadership team. And today joining me, I've got Julianne Williams, who is also in the SRS collective, and Michelle Meza. And we really come together. There's a larger group of us behind the scenes, and we work with She Rises Studios to really connect with women across the globe. And it's about that collaboration and supporting one another so that we really get to be better and we get to be stronger. And I think that everybody would agree that that is absolutely an essential mission in life. So I've brought all these fabulous women together today to talk to you about what it means to them and their own explorations of the concept of living with real intention. So I wanted to begin today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the Ngunnawal people, and that's the land from which I stream to you today. And I wanted to pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging, and to any First Nations people who might join us today. So who am I? And why have I brought this together? Well, I'm actually work as a leading evidence-based neuro coach and women's transformation activator. And I'm an international and TEDx speaker, as well as a best-selling author and the CEO of Collective Wisdom Coaching and Consulting. And I'd like to add in there a little fact, which was, last year I turned 46 and I finally figured out what I wanted to be when I grow up. So just in case anybody's out there thinking, oh my, I'm really leaning into it gets greater later, and it's absolutely never too late. So I specialize in helping women bridge the gap between the science of achievement and the art of fulfillment. And the reason for that is that I want to help them create an extraordinary life by leveraging their emotional brain to develop a more caring, calm, and compassionate relationship with themselves. And I do this through one-on-one coaching workshops, as well as a signature program that's really close to launching called the Real Success Academy. So without further ado, I'd like to just go around and get everyone that's on the panel to introduce themselves. So I might start with, what am I doing? I'm going to start with Julianne.
Well, thank you, Mel, and thank you for having me today. It's so fun. You're in Australia. I am in California. So we are in different days even. This is really a great opportunity. So my name is Julianne Williams. I am a healthcare consultant, certified grief educator, author, and speaker.
Beautiful. Thanks, Julianne. Jean, I'll go over to you now.
Hi, thanks, Melanie. I'm Jean Yin Sum, a courage and transformation coach and a biodancer facilitator. And I support beautiful humans to embody their courage and vulnerability to really live life on their terms. And a little fun fact about me is I really love movement and dancing. And I find that our body gives us so much more message and access to different possibilities more than our mind in it by itself could. So I'm so excited to be on this chat today.
I'm very excited to have you. So welcome. And now heading Michelle.
Hey, Mel, thanks for having me. It's just a pleasure to be on here with you ladies tonight. So my name is Michelle Mesa. I am the CEO of Luxie Coaching and Consulting based out of Oklahoma in the United States. And I am a certified transformation coach and also a branding and marketing strategist. And so what I do is I help entrepreneurs and people in general heal their mindsets and really focus on overcoming any blocks that they have, obstacles, self-sabotage, and really dig deep and just transform the thought process so they can live out their life. I also help entrepreneurs build six-figure brands through digital strategy and content curation. Thank you.
Welcome. And last but not least, Prue.
Hello, everybody. I am a leading intuitive business strategist and women's transformation catalyst. My name is Prue Blennerhassett. And I'm delighted to be a part of this conversation with such incredible women today. It's always something that just has me feel pretty awesome, tickles my fancy. As they say, I live on the east coast of Australia, just near a little town called Byron Bay. And I support women to dive into their soul work, to get crystal clear about what that is, who they serve, what their offering is, and how they show up in the world and deliver that. And do that at both a strategic and an energetic level. So that's me. Delighted to be here. Thank you, Mel.
Welcome. So there's a comment here and it says, really enjoying the accents. So I must admit, I learned so much from what Americans are eating, 17-lane highways. I'm like, it blows my mind. Anyway, so there you go. A little bit of cultural education along the way too. So let's talk about living with intention. And some people may or may not have heard of this concept. And what I wanted to do was really explore what it means to you as the panelists. And I really wanted to, I suppose, get you thinking about what it might mean for you out there in the audience. For me, it was definitely things started to really shift for me after I experienced something I call the decade of disaster. And I wrap it up like that so that it's probably more palatable for the audience because, and it helps me talk about it. But, it involved my mother passed away in 2009 after a long illness with breast cancer. She was 54. And as I approach that, in fact, that really tunes into my want to live with intention and, how I really practice that. But 6 months later, my 24-year-old sister passed away and she left behind two young children. One was aged 12 months and one was 5. And obviously you can understand our world just... it felt like it imploded in one instance, but it also expanded exponentially. And, it was really required my husband and I to dig deep. And we managed that. And there was lots of complexity in the background around protecting those children from my sister's partner at the time, who was violent. And of course, we were just cruising along. We're actually settling. And then in 2016, I got a call to say that our house was on fire. And we kind of lost everything that day. And it was really, obviously, you go into survival mode very much. And as a mother, it wasn't ever about me. It was about the children and keeping them safe and wanting to give them some sense of stability amongst just a massive amount of loss that they were experiencing. And then, as if that wasn't enough, and we were rebuilding, and it just sounds like a comedy of errors. But then I went to the doctor because I was feeling tired and I had a sore finger. And 4 weeks later, I was having a radical hysterectomy because I had been diagnosed with endometrial cancer. And I I had no idea what was going on at the time, and I didn't really understand why. In fact, I felt for a long time that I was being punished. However, I've now sort of, stepped my way through that and have definitely gone from literally surviving day to day through to now I really feel like I'm back into flourishing. And I just love that, partly because I've done the work and I've done the time, but also because I've really taken on board a lot of the lessons that I learnt. And I've really come to understand that I, in fact, wasn't being punished. I was being given a whole series of gifts by the universe to be able to now do the work that I do, because I understand that loss is, something we don't talk about. We're illiterate about it. And I know Julianne will be bouncing up and down going, yes. But also that loss is much more diverse than death and dying. And that, a lot of us experience that along the way. So for me, what all of that journey did was bring my life into a much sharper focus. And I think it's playing out in the way that I'm living with more purpose, more clarity, and a deeper sense of meaning. So really being attached to the work that aligns with my values. And I'm really consciously trying to create a life that I want to live. So, but what we know about that is that the world is a really demanding place. And sometimes our attention is split. Sometimes we have to do things out of necessity. And it's actually quite easy to get swept up in the chaos of daily life at times. And we can actually find ourselves feeling a little overwhelmed and unfulfilled. So by living with real intention, it actually is maybe able to ease some of that, feeling of us maybe feeling lost or stuck when we actually, kind of invest in that journey for ourselves. And so that's kind of what I wanted to explore with the panel. So I wanted to start with Prue. Do you want to briefly describe your journey towards living with real intention?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mel. And I will try and nutshell this because it can be a longer story, of course. But basically, I grew up in a bigger city, in my hometown of Melbourne. And I guess in reflection now, I can see that I was kind of had absorbed this checklist for success. So, I was at a private girls' school. My parents were both, quite high up in what they did, entrepreneurs, marketing managers, this kind of thing. And so success was kind of something that I saw as a prescription. So, you get good grades, you go to university, you do well there, you forge a great career path, you find a nice man, you buy the picket fence, you have the baby, and then you can be happy. And then you're a success. And I got to some point, like I'd studied a Bachelor of Business Banking, Finance and International Trade. And I had, moved into in a corporate position. And I was, the leading account manager at the age of 20 something and, all these kinds of things. And it was all at the expense of my own well-being, my own emotional well-being, physical well-being. I had good relationships, but there was a level of authenticity and depth that was missing. I really got to the point I was because I was working so hard, because, success is hard work was one of my stories. Because I was working so hard, it meant that I was partying on the weekends and, really kind of trying to fill this void, trying to make up for the lack that I felt in my life. And it got to the point where something had to change. And it wasn't just going to be enough for me to change my role and stay in the same environment. I really, I think it was 28 at the time, and I was like, I need a bigger change than that. And I moved to where the area where I live now 13 years ago. And from there, it's been a journey to me, I guess, to discover who I am, what it is I'm here to do in the world, and along that way has been a discovery of my own emotional awareness and acuity, and things like that as well. So that's essentially my story in a nutshell. And to me, living with intention is really about consciousness and conscious awareness.
Love it. Thanks, Prue. What about you, Michelle? Briefly describe your journey towards living with real intention.
Oh, so a little over 10 years ago, I had a series of traumatic events that really rocked my world, and just really completely changed the life I once knew. And so during that time, my marriage was falling apart in a very violent way. I had a miscarriage and then became pregnant with my rainbow baby. Um, and within a period of months, or it felt like days, I became paralyzed from the neck down from a car accident. And so I was at that point in my life to where I was just existing. Nothing was really thought through intentionally, strategically. And so I had a lot of pressure to be the woman everyone else wanted me to be. But deep down inside, I knew I had a greater purpose. I knew I had a calling on my life, but I just really couldn't see it, right? You get to that point to where you're running on autopilot and you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You don't even see the tunnel really. You just kind of just keep going. So, the thing about not being able to mobily move your body is your mind is perfectly aware of your surroundings. But what happened to me is I realized that I had some choices to make. Obviously, my life was interrupted. And so the things that caused me to, like busyness, things that just overshadowed my intentions for my life really kind of come to a halt. And so I really asked myself the question, do I go back and stay in my comfort zone, even though it was complete and utter chaos? Or do I take a leap of faith and courage and embrace the change? Because I knew that I did have to live intentionally. I understood the meaning of it, what it meant to me. Like Prue said, it's about awareness and your surroundings and really paying attention to the people who surround you and your environment that you're in. And so I was intentional about healing my mindset, because at the time I knew in order to get my body better, I had to keep my mind aware and alert and figure out, okay, do I just, remain the victim and accept that everybody's telling me, your life's over, you're stuck to a quadriplegic chair, a bed, you're bedridden for the rest of your life? Or do I take that news, or do I say, no, I'm not going to accept that? And so I chose not to accept that. And so that's when I went down the journey of healing my mind. And then I saw everything and everyone in a different way, which inspired me to live in a more present, intentional life as a mom, as a business owner, in my career, and as a person. And so I knew, I looked at my girls and I just saw the pain in their eyes and the confusion, and they didn't understand why, mommy was so active with them. I was very athletic and stuff. And so all of a sudden I couldn't move. And so that really drove the change in me to really think about, okay, I have got to be intentional as a mom first, but how do I do that? And so I just walked myself through that process every day until, once I was on the other side of healing, I saw things in a different light. And so from that moment forward, that's when I understood what living intentionally really was, and the changes that I needed to make.
Thank you. I love that you've shared that. And it really is those points will come when they're required, so to speak, that moment of going, what am I going to do here? And absolutely leaning into the fact that you had a choice And that's really and it's interesting that Jean, well, it's not interesting because I put the panel together, but when you mentioned the word courage, I was like, oh yeah, I know somebody that's all about courage. So Julianne, did you want to go next?
Well, thank you. And, it's humbling to listen to other women and to see what you have overcome. My story is, I was born with a life-threatening heart defect and had to have surgery when I was 5 so that I could be here today and have a normal lifespan. After that, I was very successful in school and whatnot, and married my high school sweetheart. And when I was 36, which is about 18 years ago, so I don't know if you find out what age you find out what you want to be when you grow up, but I'm a little bit older than 46. We'll say that, and I don't know if I found it out yet. But with that said, at the age of 36, my husband was 38. He took his life, and we had 2 small children, ages 7 and 3. And he had a long battle with bipolar disorder. And the last year was really horrific. To complicate things, my father-in-law decided to sue me for partial custody of my children about a year after he passed away. And so we ended up in a 3-year court battle. We were already under a lot of stress and trauma, and that also entered in. And then, we just had to get through a period of recovery. And I guess I'll talk more about what caused me to live a life of intention later on. But the one thing I can say is I agree with Michelle. There comes a place where you really have to make the choice. And you have to make the choice that you are worth having the life that you desire and that you can love.
Absolutely. And I can totally empathize with you, Julianne, with the court battle. And I don't know about you, but I know for us, so to secure I suppose the legal rights as guardians over my nephews, it was, kind of 10 years over time. And there were periods where that was really intense, and then it would sort of lull and there would be a big gap, and then it would rear its head again. And what I know exactly, as you're saying, when you're referring to that, it's really destabilizing, and there's a lot of trauma associated with it. And it's often something that's sort of going on in the background because you can't really drive any of it. It's all happening in a system that's pushing and pulling you at its own pace. And yet the trauma of that, and, so we had state intervention as an example. So we were under the Care and Protection Services in Australia. And to have that, to be a family that was totally independent. We were taxpayers. We were just doing our own thing. To suddenly have people be able to knock on our door and to come in and, inspect my bedroom and go through my drawers was really invasive. And in fact, to this day, it's when I speak with the children about it, it was that they lived with that threat hanging over them. So I really hear that because, and I want to acknowledge that because you say it as a sentence, as a part of a short story, but in actual fact, I really feel that. So I wanted to really acknowledge that.
And to your point, it was very destabilizing. I mean, my children, it was just 1 year after their father took his life. They were little. That was traumatic. And I actually was left in a very precarious financial situation. So finding a way to defend myself was difficult. And the reality is that I was a really good mom, and my husband, when he was living, was a really good dad. And for someone to decide that they want to insert themselves in a way that is not appropriate is, very, very upsetting. And then my children, they would say things like, please don't let grandpa take us from you. It was awful. And there's a lot that went on behind the scenes, court-appointed psychologists. And again, there was nothing I was doing wrong. I was just setting boundaries about how I wanted my children to be raised. And I'll say that today they're both two very successful young adults. So clearly, you know, I'm a competent parent. It was just a very emotional time. And I think people did things that they wouldn't do under normal circumstances. With that said, my children lived through a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And we do acknowledge that, don't we, as we parent them.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing. Jean, can I ask you to briefly describe your journey towards living with real intention?
Yeah, I'm sitting here feeling a lot of emotions as I'm listening to each and every one of your stories right now. For me, I grew up in Australia in the 80s as an Asian Australian. And in the 80s, we were in a small country town. There weren't really a lot of Asians. So I experienced a lot of racism when I grew up, and trying to straddle two worlds of being Hong Kong Chinese in my home life, and being an Aussie kid, so to speak, at school. So added on top of that, I have very strong values, and that started from when I was a very young age. So when things didn't quite align with my values, I would speak up. So this combination made me incredibly unpopular at school. And I guess if I look back then, the intention of my living was living my values. And fast forward that over the last 41 years, it's been a consistent theme in my life. And I went through a corporate career, having an amazing a range of different careers. But it wasn't until when in my late 20s, when my brother also committed suicide, that was when I realized that I was just merely surviving and running on a treadmill, and realizing that what I was doing was not aligned with my values, was not lighting me up. And so that was a big point in my life where I made a lot of changes. I quit my job. I went into international development, into not-for-profit, with the intention of serving and supporting others using my skills and experience. And that's, I guess that theme has carried through then to the rest of my career up until now. And it was the experience of losing my brother that I realized why life was too short, and that living unintentionally was not how I wanted to live my life, and was not why I was put on earth to do. Couple that with the internal urge to speak my truth and to speak against injustices, that really propels me in what I do. So in the work that I do, I see the beauty and strength in so many people, and the strengths that they don't see in themselves, and the society squashes them. And so my intention is about bringing these strengths to the forefront of their minds and their bodies, and to connect with their courage to live life on their terms, and also to support Asian women to connect with their own courage, to break through so many barriers that are put in front of them from families, from society, from work. So for me, the living with intention means aligning with my values and supporting others to live theirs.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. And I really do appreciate people sharing their vulnerability, because one of the things that I know for me during that time was I used to find it really difficult at night when everybody else would be in bed, and it would be dark outside, and it would feel really hard, and it would feel like I was alone. And it's when we talk about intention, it's one of my true intentions is to make sure that people understand that they're never alone. Because here you are, we've pulled 5 women together. I know you from all different spheres of my life and my own journey, and yet there's a connection there, and that connection is absolutely about the human experience. And what it tells us is that regardless of who we are, what we have, what car we drive, where we live, there is a whole range of experiences that will challenge us, that will have us draw from the reserves we had no idea that we actually lived with. But more to the point, I think I really love that each and every one of you has described, an awakening that really was about knowing that this isn't working, and how do I want to actually be in this world. So thank you for sharing your stories. Michelle, I wanted to ask you, can you live intentionally in your business or, in the things that you're passionate about? What do you think about that?
That's such a very intriguing question. But yes, I truly believe you can. You can live intentionally in everything that you do. And I'll tell you how I do it. So my view of intention is relatively the same as strategy, right? So being intentional, being strategic, my thought process to that is the same. It's parallel. Because when you are strategic, so you're thinking strategically, whether it's designing a room or it's, picking out a house, right? There's certain things that you desire that you want in that house and what you want in it, the look and feel of it, how you want people to feel when they walk into your home. So I see things in that light. And as a leader, I think when I think of leadership, I'm very passionate about servant leadership, because when you serve others first and lay down your ego and put it down and put yourself, in the back of the line, it changes you. It changes your thought process. You automatically become a bit more intentional with your actions and reactions in the light of others receiving what you have to give. And so as a servant leader, when I think about passions, things I'm passionate about, or business, it doesn't matter. Like if I go to an event, a business event, right, a networking event, and I walk into the room with the intention of touching everyone, and that is through conversation, that is maybe meeting a need that they mentioned. So I actively listen to what they had to say, get to know them, ask them certain questions, and then I listen. I just, I shut my mouth and listen. I know in today's world, that's very unusual, but that's my approach to life, in business and things I'm passionate about. And so what I've learned in doing that is, especially when I volunteer, I do a lot of service-driven projects, things that a lot of people don't even know about. But I love it because of the fulfillment I get from being intentionally there, mentally, physically, emotionally. So I'm present in all aspects of that. And so what that does is it ignites my passion in many ways. And so when I am very intentional about the nonprofits I choose, the people I stand behind. I'm a champion for the underdogs. I'm very passionate about that. I'm very passionate about many things. But whatever I go to do, I walk in with the frame of mind of service. Who can I serve today? How can I help someone? How can I leave them better than how I found them? And so that's how you can absolutely live intentionally in everything.
I love it. I love it. And it's funny because, 25-year history, career working in human services. And you know what, when I think about my mantra, and it was always exactly that, to be able to, for me, it was about opening up a gate or a door for somebody and letting them have a look in, something that might have always been closed off to them because maybe they didn't have the same amount of social capital as someone else, and saying, is that what you need? Like, I've got this key, let's get in there and absolutely being of service is a really important aspect of how I live intentionally too. So I love that, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you.
Prue, I wanted to go to you. What role? I've got a question here. I feel like, you know, I'm hosting a game show, really.
Love it.
You know, I'm like, I actually feel much more comfortable just being in the chair and answering the questions. But anyway, what role does intention play for women doing their soul work? Because I feel like I'm on the mission I'm heading and discovering what my soul work is, and it's filling me up. So I want you to sort of, you know, talk more about that.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for the question. So the way I see it, there is kind of like a direct correlation between intention and impact. So that when we're doing our soul work, you know, and when we're doing our soul work, how the intention that we bring to it and the transformation that we are seeking to facilitate for those we work with, and the clarity that we have around whatever that transformation is, allows us to both have a higher level of impact for those that we work with, but also to experience a greater level of impact or fulfillment ourselves in relation to that work. So, you know, the way that I see it, the way that I look at it, and what it looks like when I work with clients is that typically we are creating this container of sacred space, whatever that is, through, you know, a transformational program, or, you know, what have you. It might be a 3-day retreat, whatever. It's a sacred container, and that container is holding the intention that we have for transformation. So when we are holding that, when our clients choose to step into that, they're choosing to step into that space, that sacred container of transformation. And it's almost like this magic happens, where they come together, we come together, and if you believe in it, your higher selves come together, and it's like, okay, let's do this. And with that combination of, you know, intention, attention, focus, time, all of those kinds of things, incredible things are possible. So yeah, thanks for the question. I love it.
And I love the answer. And I think, you know, I've just recently had wrapping up relationships with a couple of clients, and I've had a couple that are, you know, coming back for a little check-in and tune-up. And you're absolutely right. When someone is primed and ready, and they're willing to step into that space and be vulnerable and honest with themselves. And I love that, you know, when you're both coming together, there's just this, it's quite indescribable. And when you were talking about that, I was going, oh my God, yeah, I'm getting goosebumps, because it's one of those things that I'll often get in the car after I've had one of those sessions with a client, and I want to record it for myself so that I can go back and go, oh my God, look how, you know, that the energy transfer between client, you know, two clients, or a coach and a client, when you're working together, is just amazing. And it really gives you a cellular shift. You just glow. And yeah, so I do love that. I really can lean into that quite a lot. Jean, I was going to ask you about, because I know this is your passion, and Jean and I met, was it just this year? Or was it last year? This year? I don't know. Anyway, it was not that long ago. So we've just come into each other's lives, and I just love the way Jean talks about courage and the vulnerability. And it was like we were kind of some sort of energetic sisters. So I wanted to ask Jean, how does courage and vulnerability support women to live intentionally?
Yeah. I think living in today's world, in this society, there are so many shoulds and things that that we're told to do. As Prue mentioned earlier, study, get a good career, get the house, find a partner, and then you'll be happy. The whole ticking of boxes. And it makes us lose connection with what our real intention is and what we are here to create and do. And the courage that it takes to align ourselves with our intention and also with our values, it takes a lot of courage to do that, to be able to say no to what's expected and to follow that inner calling, that inner power within us to move forward in the world and to speak and to act and to be. And it also takes courage to set those boundaries around what helps and supports and nourishes us, as well as letting go of the shoulds and people who tell us what we should and shouldn't do. And vulnerability is something that doesn't get talked about a lot. It's a bit of a buzzword right now, but what it means, what I see, or the power of vulnerability is, it's about dropping into the unknown. It's about taking the risks and dropping into the unknown, especially when you're living with intention. There's no set blueprint already. There's no manual written that here's how you live your intention in your life. It's a lot about trying new things and going against what others will tell you to do. And the vulnerability in that, it's about being open to the possibilities and having that courage to be even vulnerable, to drop into that space and to express our emotions. And emotions is something that we've been taught to squash and to bottle up and box up. But if we look at the word emotions, is emotions, energy in motion. So we don't allow this energy to move. What happens is kapow, things will explode. So if we bring courage and vulnerability together, it supports us to live intentionally by stretching ourselves and paving new pathways for ourselves and for people around us. And the impact of that is when we start to connect with our courage and vulnerability in ourselves, others see the impact that it has on our lives. And there's the inspiration for them to follow theirs, to live their life with intention. And also the impact when we are more empowered to live our intention, more empowered to live by our values, then a lot of things just fall away. The impact of that, the unnecessary things that we've been talking about in this conversation simply fall away. So courage is something that is needed, and it's also not a big mystery either. I call it exercising our courage muscle. We build it up a little bit each day, whether that's simply about saying no or playing with vulnerability and turning off your GPS while you're driving and trusting your intuition. The little things can help build those courage and vulnerability muscles, which then enable us to live more intentionally, because once we build this, we have more confidence in our abilities. So I hope that answers your questions around courage and vulnerability. It's quite a big topic.
Yeah, in a couple of minutes, that was great. No, absolutely. And I love the what you talked there about the ripple effect. So that, interestingly, I'm sure most of us on this panel would be able to attribute that when someone works and is really developing that internal relationship, that sense of internal validation, and stepping into these spaces with courage and vulnerability, the ripple effect of that on the other relationships and their situations in life is just, it's so powerful. Because, I know something that we always have a bit of a laugh. We do, because I do use a lot of humor in my coaching. But someone will come to me and say, you know what, I did it. And I'll say, what did you do? And they'll say, I said no. And I'll say, oh my God. And what happened? And they say, nothing. And then I go, oh, okay. So no one was struck by lightning, no one turned to dust, and no one self-combusted. And they were like, absolutely not. And I'm like, well, isn't that interesting? And, you know, so you're right. The courage and the vulnerability to step into that space and try something new. And what I really think is an important message is that it really is, and it's cliched, but it really is never too late to step into that space and have a go, make a change. Just, take that time and invest in your well-being. And what will inevitably happen, particularly when we're busy women, we're looking after others and we are being of service to others, but we have a place in there as well. And so, thanks, Jean. I really did love that explanation. Julianne, you're next in the firing line. I wanted to ask you, I hope it's not that painful, but
No.
I wanted to ask you, what have the most difficult experiences in your life really taught you about finding purpose and developing a life that you really love? It's big question.
It is a big question. And a couple of things. So I, again, just am in awe of already what's been shared. I have to step back. And, I had a big plan for my life. And that big plan was I went to college and I got married to my high school sweetheart, and we both started jobs and did well and bought homes and had children, and life was perfect. And it was exactly what I had planned. And then one day my life went unplanned. And I learned more from the things that almost destroyed me than I did from the things that I planned to happen. Now, it's not that we want terrible things to happen, but I have to say that if my life weren't the way it was, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I've learned a lot about intention. And I found also that, when you're living in intention, you do adjust that and change it as time goes by. So in my mind, I don't think you have to choose one thing as an intention that has to get you through your entire life. You can continue to adjust the chapter that you're in and the intention that you're living towards. So when my husband first took his life, I, about 4 months later, was with my children, and he had gone to a remote area. And I thought, I need to see where this is. And so I put my children in the car and began to drive them through the mountains, and thought, if I just drive us off the cliff, no one has to be sad anymore. And I thought, this is just too hard and it's not worth it. And so then I had the flash of the moment when I pulled the car over and said, wait, there is a purpose to my life and the life of my children. And I need to figure this out right now. Or I need to start figuring out right now. And that was the moment that I decided that life was going to be worth living, not just for me, but I was going to set an example for my children to live a good life. And that became my sole purpose and intention. So, I worked really hard and became the president of the second largest skilled nursing care company in the United States while I raised my children on my own. And I achieved the intention of raising my children. And then a few years ago, I sort of realized that after 32 years in healthcare and being on call 24/7, 365, that I needed to find what my next purpose was. And I sold my company and I became an author and a speaker. And the intention, I know, right, was I then got to go back to look at different lessons from the hardship. So at first I had to put my children and my life as a priority. Now I look at my new intention, which is I want people to know that you can make it. I want people to know that they don't have to feel isolated and alone and different, and having those feelings that of if I fail in this, my entire life is over. So my intention now is to support people through that and through grief, which is why I'm a certified grief educator, and I help people understand how grief works and do peer-to-peer work with them, because grief doesn't stop. And so the lessons that I've learned have been able to transform through time into different intentions and different ways in which I feel that I can make a difference for myself and for others.
Spot on. I tell you what, I've got some, really big feels going on here because I'm just like, this panel rocks. It's so much there. I think what I really love is talking about those chapters and what that really looks like. And some of them are really short, and some of them are much longer. And some of them are absolutely written with all of the best dreams and intentions in mind. And then you're right, there can be a rupture that occurs and absolutely literally puts you in a completely different situation. And I really love that idea that one of the things that I really lean into is that nothing is forever, including the decisions we make, that we've got those choices and that we're able to, I'm not going to use the word pivot, because that's so COVID, and that was a very popular word in Australia. I don't know about the US, but anyway, we're over it. But it's absolutely about understanding that you really get to grow and move through life at your pace. And humans are they're wired for connection, they're wired for belonging, and they're wired for growth. And when those three things are at deficit or non-existent, that's when we're in trouble. And so that's why I love, Julianne, you talking about the importance of sharing the stories, of narrating what's happened and how we've lived through that and in fact come back. It's so, so important. What I did want to do is we've got sort of 8 minutes or so left before the hour hits. So I just wanted to go around one more time and ask you what advice you would give to someone who is beginning. So they've potentially, if you go back to the past with consent, and go, oh, that was that moment for Prue, 28, in this crazy life, and, had that feeling and is potentially feeling a nudge. What kind of advice would you give to them? I might start with you again, Prue. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Pretty simple from me. I'd say my advice would just be to go easy on yourself. Like, growth and, raising consciousness, becoming more aware is a journey. It takes time, and I don't think it's a journey that we ever come to the end of. We just keep doing it more and more as we age. That's my belief. So yeah, go easy, because sometimes it feels amazing and other times not so much. So do whatever you can to take care of yourself through the journey.
Absolutely. I think sometimes you'll, particularly if a client's really coming to it. So for me, I actually can't remember a moment in time when I wasn't reflecting on something. That's how my mind works. So if the brain has, average 80,000 thoughts a day, I reckon I top out at about 120. So, when I sometimes work with some people and then we get to this really good point and they're feeling very high, and then I say, so, this is like the relationship that you're going to have with yourself for the rest of your life. And some of them will just be like, drop the mic. No way. I can't do this. and and I'm always like, so, but you're absolutely right, Prue. It is a lovely journey, and there is no 30-day radical transformation. It is literally, some days feels like you're treading, walking through mud, and other days you are, like I said, when I come out and I'm recording that moment, it's because that beautiful high is just, you want to harvest it, right? And put it in a little jar so you can get it out when you need it. So thanks, Prue. I really appreciate you sharing. Jean, what about you? What advice would you give someone?
Yeah, two pieces of advice. One is to follow the breadcrumbs. Just simply follow the breadcrumbs. Don't have a massive strategy and plan, 10-year plan. I don't have any of those. I don't even have a 2-year plan at that. But follow the breadcrumbs and see where it leads you, bringing that curiosity. Secondly is when you feel that internal urge that you really need to follow that internal voice or your heart or your soul, follow it, especially when your mind will do everything it can to talk you out of it. Follow that, because that is where the gold lies. That's it.
So true. I love it. I absolutely love it. Michelle, what about you?
So Jean talked about earlier about intuition, and so becoming more aware of our intuition, and that allows us and gives us space to operate in authenticity and with full intention. And so we become more mindful of our impact. And so from the moment that we wake up and our feet hit the floor to the evening when our heads hit the pillow, choose to be mindful and intentional of your day, so that each task and habit aligns with your goals and your purpose. And do an inventory of your life and the people in your life. What does it look like? Where do you see yourself in a year, 3 to 5 years, and then on down the road? And then define the goals and make it happen.
Love it. Thank you. And what about you, Julianne? Any last little nuggets of wisdom?
A couple. Number one is comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
And so whatever you do what you love, and understand that no one has a perfect life, no matter what you think it looks like. And so comparing yourself to someone and trying to reach towards something that is not even true, because social media does this to us, will only drain you. And then the second thing is just try to love every minute, every fun time, every hard time. Love every minute, because that minute we don't get back. And you will learn from each one of them if you will take the opinion that it's not good or bad, but it's just an experience.
I feel at peace. I'm like, oh yeah, I got to go do a few things this afternoon. Look, I really wanted to thank everybody for joining me today. You have all, I've learnt a lot about each of you individually, which I love, because curiosity is definitely one of the values that I live by, and I've really enjoyed the conversation with you. And I wanted to also thank everybody who has joined us live today, and everybody who might be watching the replay. You are also included in this. And I think overall, the message that's really come through today for me is that we all hope in some way that this is helpful, in that it adds to the knowledge that you have about yourself, but it also expands your understanding. And just in some way, just where you might have been thinking about something and reflecting on it, and then you may have heard that one sentence that absolutely leans in and says you're on the right path. Particularly if you're feeling that you need to be making a small shift, a tweak, or a nudge. It's absolutely safe to do that, because like I said before, quite often we're mind reading our own lives, and it's actually not going to necessarily be that way. Each woman on this panel works with other women, and that's why they're one of my peeps. And what I'm going to do is make sure that I go in and I'll place the contact details of all of us in the comments under these live streaming on Facebook, just so that you're able to find them easily. And I really encourage anybody that wants to explore something that might be, giving them a little bit of, and it's not about grief. Hopefully it's not about, but it might be a little pull towards something different. So lean in. I know everybody is open to having those conversations, and whether that's via email, DMs, however it is that suits you. And what we all hope from the panel today is that you've felt inspired in just a small way, and hopefully a little bit more motivated to live a life with more intention, and really to enjoy all the benefits that sense of fulfillment can bring you. So thank you so much for joining us. We will talk to you soon, and we just want you to have a wonderful day. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.